and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Hundreds of South Korean workers detained in an immigration raid on a Hyundai facility in the U.S. are now set to board a charter flight back home on Wednesday afternoon. At this year's annual security forum, the Seoul Defense Dialogue, discussions centered on building communication channels and mutual trust. Making major powers responsible for their actions that threaten peace was also addressed, as defense officials and experts from around the world gather for the event. 6 people were killed in an Israeli airstrike on Qatar, which targeted senior Hamas leaders, marking the first known Israeli attack on a Gulf Arab state. The White House responded by saying Israel's strike in Doha does not advance Israel's or America's goals. We begin in the United States, where around 300 South Korean workers who have been detained in Georgia are set to return home. They are expected to be released from a detention center and board a charter flight on Wednesday afternoon, U.S. time, arriving in South Korea on Thursday evening, Korean time. Our Park Hyubin starts us off.
Around 300 South Korean workers detained at an IC detention center in the U.S. state of Georgia are expected to board a chartered flight on Wednesday around 2:30 p.m. local time to take them home. They are scheduled to arrive at Incheon International Airport on Thursday around 6:30 p.m. Korean time. The release process is expected to begin on Wednesday afternoon at the detention center in Folkestone, Georgia. But unexpected administrative steps such as identity checks at the airport could cause delays. Seoul has been negotiating their return under the terms of voluntary departure rather than deportation. Unlike deportation, a voluntary departure does not result in a permanent record, allowing future re-entry to the United States. Deportation orders, however, can trigger bans and other restrictions. But concerns remain after the U.S. Department of Homeland Security Secretary earlier said that a few of the detainees had engaged in other criminal activity and would face the consequences. At a White House briefing on Tuesday, officials defended U.S. President Donald Trump's decision as nuanced, responsible, and sensible, adding that the Departments of Homeland Security and Commerce are working together to address visa issues facing foreign companies. A spokesperson also pointed to a previous statement by Trump thanking foreign firms for investing in the U.S., stressing that Washington understands the need for skilled workers in sectors like semiconductors and batteries, and is exploring ways to resolve visa issues for employees of foreign investors.
We have a lot of industries that we don't have anymore, and we're going to have to train people. And the way you train people is bring people in that know what they're doing and let them stay for a little while and help.
Their departure offers relief for now, but questions remain over how future visa issues for foreign investors will be resolved. Park Hyubin, Arirang News.
So as we just heard, Korean workers detained in last week's immigration raid will be safely returning home, but the incident has set off alarm bells here in Seoul due to new risks for investment abroad. Questions now also remain over when the factory in Georgia will be completed, as it's now expected to be delayed by several months. For more on this, we're joined today by Professor Park Min-jung, professor at the Department of Business Administration at Kumo National Institute of Technology. Professor Park, thanks for coming in today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today.
So this comes after South Korean companies, including Hyundai, agreed to invest $350 billion in the United States as part of a broader trade deal, right? How could the latest immigration raid affect other major U.S. investment plans and overall economic ties between Seoul and Washington?
Yeah, the immigration raid goes beyond law enforcement and carries significant implications for South Korean companies for large-scale investments in the U.S. And the broader perspectives broader Seoul and Washington economic partnership. With firms like Hyundai pledging recently around $300 billion in U.S. investments, labor and compliance risks can directly affect project timelines and cost structures. In the short term, production delays and supply disruptions may arise, while in the long term, tax incentives and subsidies are closely tied to labor law compliance, raising the risks of clawbacks if violations recur. So the impact may even greater on suppliers, creating ripple effects across the entire value chain. So that is why Korean firms need a holistic compliance framework that extends to subcontractors as well in the future. So finally, still, this issue is unlikely to derail investment itself. But if both government uses it as an opportunity to strengthen labor and supply chain transparency, it could ultimately enhance the entire trust in U.S. and Korea economic cooperation.
I see, but industry insiders say that without these skilled Korean workers who will now be leaving the United States, completion of the factory in Georgia could be delayed by possibly several months. What kind of economic impact could this result in?
Yeah, if the absence of skilled workers will almost certainly delay the factory's completion. Building a factory plant is not simply labor. It requires advanced technical expertise and also safety, very strict safety compliance, which cannot be replaced only overnight. So such delays would disrupt production timelines, ripple through the electric vehicle supply chain, affecting not only Hyundai and LG, but also the US policies aimed at accelerating electric vehicle adoption. So economically, this means billions of dollars in investments returns will be postponed, while local job creation tax revenues are also delayed. So weakening strength means weakening regional growth also. So in the short term, this is not just a single factor issue. It could have broader implications for both the global supply chain and the local economy in the long-term perspectives.
See, and U.S. President Donald Trump is apparently trying to reduce the number of foreign-born workers in the U.S. He said the country should find a way to let experts come in and train American workers. How realistic is this plan?
Yet the Trump's delivery message means Trump's plan delivers have a political messaging, but in practice, it faces significant challenges. Industries like battery manufacturing and shipbuilding require highly specialized skills that cannot be transferred through short-term training alone. If foreign experts are allowed only as trainers, as not as part of the core workforce, companies may face productivity gaps that delay factory completion. It may also slow investment returns and disrupt the U.S. electric vehicle supply chain in a whole strategy. So a more practical approach would be to maintain a balanced use of foreign skilled workers while simultaneously training and expanding U.S. and education programs also to gradually build domestic capacity. So it means a short term combining immediate productivity while long-term workforce development is the most realistic path forward.
I see. I guess we'll have to see how the bilateral economic ties play out. All right, Professor Park, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for your insight, as always.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, a South Korean delegation has wrapped up its working-level trade talks with the United States trade officials in Washington, D.C. The delegation arrived in the U.S. on Sunday and held talks with officials from the U.S. Commerce Department and the U.S. Trade Representative's Office the following day. The talks follow a broad trade framework deal reached in late July and the summit between Presidents Lee Jae-myung and Donald Trump on August 25th. Discussions centered on Seoul's plans to invest $350 billion in the U.S. were discussed. Both sides reportedly focused on how to carry out the investment projects, marking the first substantive step toward fleshing out the framework deal. And here in Seoul, defense officials and experts around the world gather to attend the Seoul Defense Dialogue 2025. Amid deepening security challenges, they shared their views of how to overcome geopolitical issues and build peace. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung files this report.
Confronting geopolitical challenges and building peace through cooperation. This is the theme of the 14th edition of the Seoul Defense Dialogue, the annual security forum hosted by South Korea's defense ministry. With the war in Ukraine still going on in Europe and with China aligning with Russia and North Korea, the need for cooperation to respond to these challenges is clear. Having invited around high-level defense officials and experts from around the world, the forum served as a venue to talk about how to counter those security challenges. As regional rivalries and economic fragmentation get worse, officials warn that the world could become increasingly divided. They emphasize the urgent need for concrete measures to address the threats that put global stability at risk. One key message was on the need for communication and mutual trust.
Keeping peace isn't just about having stronger military power. It's also important to build systems for mutual deterrence and trust.
We believe it's crucial to increase channels of communication and to reinforce the importance of face-to-face meetings like this one here and the conversations we're all having bilaterally in the room.
Holding major powers responsible for their actions that threaten peace and stability through institutions and framework was highlighted as well. And most of all, officials emphasized how the discussion on stability in the international order must be inclusive.
Our international order must be multilateral, built with the participation of middle powers, regional groupings, and small states alike. The rules of the road must reflect the interests of all, and not just the strongest.
In the world where interdependence can lead to vulnerability, coming up with real, pragmatic measures to challenge security issues could take some time. But pundits do agree such dialogue could be a start toward the process. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Over in the Middle East, an Israeli airstrike targeting senior Hamas officials killed 6 people in Qatar. Hamas said none of the negotiating team, which was set to discuss a U.S. ceasefire proposal, were killed, while the White House said it feels badly about the attack. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
Israel carried out an airstrike on Tuesday, targeting senior Hamas leaders in Qatar. According to Hamas, the attack killed 6 of its members, none of whom were officials for the Palestinian militant group, who are set to discuss a ceasefire proposal by U.S. President Donald Trump in Doha. Al Jazeera reported more than 10 blasts, while Reuters reported multiple explosions being heard around 3:50 p.m. in a residential area in the Qattara district. The Israeli military confirmed it used precision weapons to minimize civilian casualties, while the Prime Minister's office stressed the strike was conducted independently and aimed at Hamas leadership. While senior Hamas figure Khalil al-Hayya is believed to have been the target, reports say he survived the attack. This marks the first time Israel has carried out a strike inside Qatar, a key mediator in the conflict since Hamas's October 2023 attack. In response, Qatar condemned the attack, calling it state terrorism.
The Israeli attack that took place today on Qatari soil, we cannot call it anything other than state terrorism practiced by someone like Netanyahu in the context of these systematic policies and his ongoing attempts that have destabilized regional security and stability.
Qatar's UN envoy called it a blatant violation of international law, while UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres also denounced the strike as a clear breach of Qatari sovereignty, urging all sides to pursue efforts toward a lasting ceasefire. Meanwhile, the White House on Tuesday said President Donald Trump feels very badly about Israel's strike on Hamas targets in Qatar.
The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack.
The White House added that Trump spoke to both Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and also the Emir of Qatar, assuring the Qatari leader that such a thing will not happen again on their soil. The latest strike threatens to derail Gaza ceasefire talks, as well as President Trump's effort to broker a negotiated end to the nearly 2-year conflict between Israel and Hamas. 이승재, Arirang News.
South Korea's year-on-year employment in August increased by 166,000, continuing 3 months of additions in the 100,000 range. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, the employment rate for August rose by 0.1% on year to 63.3%. However, manufacturing and construction sectors continue to see job losses, down 61,000 and 132,000 respectively. The unemployment rate was 2.0%, up 0.1 percentage point from the same period last year. And Seoul is hosting an annual forum that seeks to share innovation strategies for future mobility, from autonomous vehicles and flying taxis, all under an inclusive transport system. Our Moon Ji-young was there.
The future of transport and mobility is being shaped here in Seoul. The third edition of the Global Mobility Conference opened on Tuesday, bringing together experts from around the world to discuss how to create more inclusive, resilient, safe, and accessible transport systems. This forum, co-hosted by the Korean government and the OECD International Transport Forum, aims to map out innovative solutions to redefine future on the move.
Mobility is almost a blood system of society and the economy, and we need to take good care of that system as we move forward. We need to take a global approach to regulating mobility, and in this sense, the leadership of the Republic of Korea is extremely important.
Looking into how we might travel in the future, automaker Hyundai Motor stressed the need to prepare for an era where mobility becomes an essential utility, much like electricity is today.
Transportation in the future will involve self-moving mobility devices centrally managed by the cloud. These devices will be interconnected, with cities serving as the infrastructure. We are developing them not merely as vehicles for transport, but as AI learning machines capable of continuously enhancing user value and improving device functionality.
The Korean Transport Ministry has highlighted the importance of bolstering policies to ensure mobility rights and inclusivity in the era of future mobility. The two-day conference also includes discussions on the commercialization of autonomous driving and urban air mobility, as well as addressing the mobility rights of disadvantaged groups. Global institutions saw today's conference as a meaningful opportunity to share innovation strategies for future mobility with the world and strengthen the foundation for global cooperation. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. A Russian airstrike struck a village in eastern Ukraine during a pension distribution, killing at least 24 elderly civilians. On Tuesday morning, as residents in the Donetsk region village of Irova gathered at a mobile post office for pension payouts, they were struck by a Russian glide bomb. The 24 people killed were mostly pensioners and local postal workers. 19 others were injured. President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the strike as savage and urged Western and G20 leaders once again to increase pressure on Moscow through sanctions. This attack is part of a broader escalation of airstrikes on Ukrainian civilian hotspots. It follows the deadliest aerial assault on Kyiv just days earlier. French President Emmanuel Macron has appointed his defense minister, Sébastien Lecornu, as the nation's new prime minister following the resignation of François Bayrou. The decision on Wednesday comes after Bayrou failed a confidence vote 24 hours earlier, ousting him from the position. Macron swiftly named 39-year-old Sébastien Lecornu as France's fifth prime minister in under 2 years. A longtime Macron loyalist and former defense chief, Lecornu will need to forge a cross-party consensus to pass a budget amid rising social unrest. Lecornu is expected to retain Macron's pro-business reform agenda, continuing tax cuts and pension adjustments, even as nationwide demonstrations loom. A grassroots movement called Bloquons Tout, meaning let's block everything, has planned anti-government protests across France, and authorities have deployed 80,000 police officers to maintain order. American tech company Apple unveiled the iPhone Air, its thinnest iPhone ever, on Wednesday at an annual product launch event. The new model is just 5.6 millimeters thick, featuring a high-density battery and a brand new processor, and is priced at $999. Despite its ultra-slim titanium frame, the iPhone Air packs pro-level performance with an A19 Pro chip and a large 6.5-inch display, all while maintaining all-day battery life. CEO Tim Cook called the Air model a game-changer, saying that it was the most durable iPhone yet. The company also launched the iPhone 17 and iPhone 17 Pro, the latest upgrades to its flagship smartphones, featuring a brighter, more scratch-resistant screen. Pre-orders begin September 12th, with availability starting September 19th. New York Fashion Week officially begins this Thursday, September 11th, featuring established brands such as Coach, Michael Kors, and Calvin Klein, alongside a wave of emerging designers. However, the mood is cautious as the event unfolds against a shaky luxury backdrop, with top names such as Marc Jacobs and Ralph Lauren staging shows outside the official schedule, raising questions about the event's cohesion and prestige. Organizers are responding with reforms under the Council of Fashion Designers of America and the fashion event platform KFN, planning a network of 10 free venues within a 15-minute radius of each other to lower costs and encourage participation. The event will run until September 16th.
Temperatures are bouncing back this afternoon, bringing back the late summer heat, especially to western parts of Korea. And it was a chilly start to the day, dropping to the teens in the capital. So there will be a sharp temperature swing, perhaps more than 10 degrees Celsius in many areas through tomorrow. And there will be morning rain in southern regions with up to 30 millimeters in the forecast. Jeju Island will see 5 to 40 millimeters of showers through tomorrow evening. Central parts of Korea will stay mostly sunny today. And this afternoon, Seoul gets up to 32 degrees rather, Daegu topping out at 28 degrees. But despite the recent cool down, a heat advisory remains in place for coastal Jeju. In fact, Seogwipo on Jeju has now recorded its 30th consecutive tropical night. And tomorrow, the wide day-night temperature gaps will continue. Make sure to dress accordingly. It's easy to come down with a cold during this time of the year.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.